Have you ever stopped to wonder how a country actually, runs? A huge part of the answer comes down to political parties. They're the ones organizing elections, running governments, and, connecting us, the citizens, to the state. They really are the engine of our democracy.
But that brings up a really big question, right? We know parties run the country, but who runs the parties? How do these incredibly powerful organizations actually work on the inside? That's what we're going to get into today.
So first things first, let's start with the absolute basics. Before we get into all the complex stuff, why do we even have political parties? What's their fundamental purpose anyway?
At its core, a political party is really just a group of people who kind of share the same ideas about how a country should be run. You can think of them like a sports team. They get organized, they come up with a game plan, their policies, and they compete in elections hoping to win enough support to form the government. And their job goes way beyond just showing up for elections. They take all these complex issues and package them into clearer choices for us voters. When a party wins, they get to form the government. And the parties that don't win, they become the opposition, which is an absolutely crucial job to keep the government in check. All the while, they're the main pipeline for creating laws, acting as this vital bridge between everyday people and the folks in power.
So look, any group of people can get together and call themselves a party, but to get officially recognized, they have to play by a very specific set of rules. Let's take a look at how this works in India and what it takes to get your name in the official rulebook.
In India, the Election Commission is basically the referee, and it has this very precise numbers-based formula to decide if a party gets official status as either a regional or a national player. This isn't about opinions or feelings. It's all about performance at the ballot box.
As you can see, there are two totally distinct paths here. To become a recognized regional party, you've got to prove your strength within a single state election. But to go national, well, the bar is set way higher. A party has to show it has serious support either across the whole country in a national election or in at least 4 different states.
It all kicks off with this magic number, 6%. To even be in the conversation for official recognition, a party has to grab at least 6% of the total votes in its target election, whether that's state or national. But here's the thing, votes alone are not going to cut it. That vote share has to actually translate into wins. For regional status, a party needs to win at least 2 seats in that state's assembly. It's about proving you can not only get people to vote for you, but that you can actually secure a spot at the table. And for the big leagues, getting that national status, the requirement jumps up to winning at least 4 seats in the Lok Sabha, which is India's lower house of parliament. So, you see, it's always a combination of 2 things: broad popular support, which you see in the vote share, and the ability to win specific races, which you see in the seats.
Okay, so even with all these official rules, political parties are far from perfect. All over the world, including right here in India, they face some really serious internal problems. And when you hear people getting frustrated with politics, it often boils down to 4 major challenges.
So what are they? First, a lack of internal democracy. Second, the problem of dynastic succession. Third, the growing influence of money and muscle power. And finally, a feeling that there's no meaningful choice for voters. Let's break each of these down. The first one is that power tends to get concentrated right at the very top, in the hands of just a few leaders. If you're an ordinary party member, you might not get much information about what's happening inside the party, and you probably have very little say in the big decisions, like who gets to be a candidate.
And you can see how that leads directly to our second problem, dynastic succession. When the top spots are controlled by members of one family, it becomes incredibly difficult for a talented newcomer, someone without connections, to rise up no matter how good they are or how much support they have.
Now, the last 2 challenges are deeply connected. First, there's the growing role of money and muscle. Since the main goal is to win, parties often pick candidates who can raise tons of cash or have a lot of influence, which means policies can start getting shaped by wealthy donors. And this ties right into the second issue. A lot of parties start to look very similar on the big issues, which doesn't give voters a really meaningful choice. It's kind of like having 2 different drivers grabbing the steering wheel of the same car. It's not at all clear where it's actually headed.
All right, so those are some pretty big problems, right? But the good news is people are trying to fix them. So let's talk about the efforts being made to reform the system.
Over the years, there have been some really important steps taken through both changes to the Constitution and orders from the courts, all trying to clean up politics and make these parties more accountable to the people.
One of the biggest moves was something called the anti-defection law.
Basically, this was designed to stop elected politicians from party hopping just to get a cabinet post or some cash. Now, if an MP or MLA decides to leave their party after they've been elected, they can be disqualified and lose their seat entirely.
Another huge reform actually came from the Supreme Court. It's now mandatory for every single candidate to file an affidavit. That's a sworn statement, giving full details of their property and any criminal cases they have pending. This puts crucial information right in the hands of the public.
But the conversation doesn't stop there. There are several really powerful ideas being debated for the future. One is to pass a law that would regulate the internal workings of parties and force them to hold regular internal elections. Another is to require parties to give at least 1/3 of their election tickets to women candidates. And finally, there's the idea of state funding for elections, where the government gives parties money for their campaigns to reduce their reliance on shady funds.
But here's the thing. Laws and new regulations can only do so much. The final, and maybe the most important piece of the puzzle, well, that comes down to us, the citizens.
The health and the quality of any democracy really, truly depends on how much its citizens participate. Public pressure, through petitions, through the media, through movements, is one of the most powerful ways to push for reform. The other powerful way? For ordinary people who want to see change to actually get involved and join political parties themselves.
Which leaves us with a final thought. If political parties are just a reflection of society, and if we want better, more transparent, and more democratic parties, where does that change really begin?